Hey everyone, welcome to the That's Allowed podcast. Here we are for season 4. Woo! Can't believe we made it 4 seasons. This is wonderful. So, today we have such an incredibly special guest. I am so honored to have you, Rhianna Basore. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. So, I am an international award winning actor, director, filmmaker, and writer, as well as a financial empowerment coach for creatives. It is my deep passion to help other creatives fund their best creative life while living the life of their dreams.
All things I'm so passionate about. So, I am so delighted to have you here. So I was really just so flattered that she agreed to be here for the first episode of season 4 because season 4 is all about, we're calling it hindsight 2020. And now hindsight 2020, of course, goes a long way in terms of explaining what we do here. We all look back and everything's so clear in that rear view mirror, isn't it? But I think finally we're starting to get enough distance on the year 2020 that we can start looking at what were the biggest obstacles we overcame and what were the greatest gifts that we received specifically from that unprecedented year. So I just want to ask you that first question of what was the greatest obstacle you overcame in the year 2020?
Yeah, it's such a powerful question because for me, 2020 was a transformative year. I started the beginning of 2020 coming off the high of directing my first show. My friend had been developing a one-person clowning show for over a year. I was heavily involved as a consultant on that. And then when the time came, he asked me to direct it, and it was my first opportunity to direct a theater play, and it was a huge success. We had a blast. The audience response was amazing. We toured it all around the United States. And in fact, were able to headline the Marfa Fringe in Marfa, Texas, which was a highlight of my career. But the thing I was the most excited about was that we had been invited to present it in Iceland, in Reykjavik. So I, being the good money coach that I am, I got all my financial ducks in a row. I had it all scheduled out. A beautiful Scandinavian pad, little artist nook right across from volcanic hot springs,
Oh,
day spa.
I
It
can so
was
picture it.
walkable to our venue. I could not wait. And then COVID happened, and Americans were uninvited from the island of Iceland
Mhm.
for understandable reasons. But for me, it was the thing I had pinned all of my 2020 dreams on, was this opportunity to perform, to see my show be performed in Iceland.
Yeah.
And I don't really believe that things can't be turned into gold. So I put my dream hat on and I said, well, what if we could make it into a movie? They're offering us to perform it on Zoom, but I'm not such a fan of Zoom plays. I find that the translation isn't as rich as the piece that I created. So I approached my collaborator and said, what do you think about making it into a movie? And he was so on board. He completely recreated it as a screenplay. We shot it over 4 weekends in a closet at his house. We did the editing. We submitted it 2 weeks ahead of the deadline, and it opened to even better acclaim than the theater play had received, as well as being seen by thousands of people all over the world. And so for me, it was truly evidence that you can spin a challenge into gold.
Absolutely. So I love that story for so many reasons. I want to go back a little bit to that moment where everything, like the ground just opens up beneath you. It's like you've got all these plans, things are finally starting to work for you. I think so many people out there can relate to that moment where it's like things are finally starting to get traction. You're finally starting to go someplace, and then all of a sudden, whew, the bottom drops out. And it
Mhm.
just feels so unfair.
Yes.
And it's so easy in that moment to just get angry and get bitter and to throw yourself a pity party.
Mhm.
And but it's that moment where you have that beautiful opportunity
Mhm.
to do something completely new and unprecedented and go in a totally new direction. So,
Mhm.
you said I just came up with this idea of of filming it, but where do you think was that mental shift for you where you were like, "Okay, get over yourself, like, we still need to do something here," and decided to just take it in a new direction?
It's such a great question, and I don't know if I can pinpoint one source, but I can say that I had the incredible support of my creative community as we were all navigating the early months of the COVID challenge. I also, at that time, was a yoga teacher, so I was missing my yoga community, which was a daily practice for me. And so I really welcomed re embracing my creative community as a daily interaction. And so I was in a number of conversations in regular meeting groups, as well as re navigating The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is an
One of my
absolute
favorites.
classic. Yes.
Mhm.
Between you and me, I had never officially finished it. So I was like, hashtag COVID goals. So I was sort of double dutying with the holding space with creative people and doing The Artist's Way, and it allowed me to tap into that internal space of limitless possibility. And so it really, in the way that I believe these things happen, it was a download from the universe. I had this image and it kept coming and it kept coming and it kept getting funnier and funnier. And I just thought, I think there's magic here. I will add that we had made a small trailer a for a film version of the play we were thinking about doing the year before. So it wasn't completely out of the blue,
Mhm.
but definitely going zero to movie was an unexpected turn.
And you say you filmed it in a closet.
Mhm.
Like, most people, most theater people are trying to get out of the closet, yet you went back
Isn't
into
that
it.
the truth?
Tell me
One
about
of the
that.
things that I learned doing live theater is that the constraints are the freedom.
Absolutely.
And while sometimes you really want to beat your head against the walls of the box of the piece that you're working on, it really is once you find the infinite possibility within the limitation that you understand you can do anything. So for me, I should clarify that this piece was about a Trump voter who later ends up, spoiler alert, as the president of the United States. So that's his journey, is from a sort of going into the underworld because he voted for Trump misadventure, ending up as the president of the United States. It's an underdog story. And so I had this image of him escaping his handlers because he is a clowning character. So he does not do things the right way or say them the right way. And that he had gone into a closet at the White House and he was giving his State of the Union address, thinking himself to be FDR. But of course, he is this out of touch, tone deaf kind of dinosaur from an imagined past. And it just really delighted me to think of the joy and the boyish enthusiasm that my actor would bring to that scenario.
That's wonderful. I could not agree more that one of the best ways to actually tap into your creativity is to put constraints on things. When you say to someone, "Hey, draw me a picture," they'll look at you like, "Do what now?" If you say, "Draw a picture of a cute animal," well, now we have constraints. And now your imagination starts thinking about animals that you think are cute. And what can I draw? Oh, well, I'm pretty good at puppies. All right, I'm going to go with a puppy. But people kind of freeze up when you give them too much creative space to run around in. Like little kids, we actually like having edges. We like to know where the boundaries are. And so it can be really freeing actually to give yourself constraints. One of the most common things you do in like writing workshops and things is that the leader will give you constraints. Well, you have to have this included and you can't have this included. And so that helps you to come up with something. So if you're struggling creatively, if you ever find yourself stuck, instead of opening things up, sometimes it's actually really helpful to narrow things down and give yourself constraints.
I think such a great example of that, because I really agree, is the hot lava game. Do you remember that from when you were a kid and you
Of
can't
course,
touch the floor? Like there's no outcome to the rules. No one's going to be the winner. You just can't be on the floor. And it's the most joyful, silly making, inducing game that has no rules except for don't touch the floor.
exactly. Absolutely. So let's jump into, what do you think is the story the world isn't getting?
Um, I actually am working on writing my first memoir right now, and that's also been one of my COVID creative projects. I've always been a very avid reader, especially of memoir, of people telling their personal story. And I realized, maybe as a result of this project, that I didn't share my personal story, that I, as a performer, interpreted other people's, and as a director filmmaker, I further interpreted other people's performance and their story, and that I hadn't really told my story. And so I have been actively exploring that for the past, I would say, 9 months. And I think it's still coming into view, but I think that it really has to do with my journey as a seeker. I've always been in pursuit of something I haven't experienced, that I didn't know, that transcends what I am as a human. And more than that, it has taken these different forms in my life. I find it as a thread through everything that I do. But I would like to share my personal journey as a human on this planet, in order to both own my voice, but also inspire others to take more risks. I've taken a lot of risks in my life, both as a human and as a creative. And I haven't always told people all the bumps and all the highs of that journey. So I have a feeling that's where the story lies.
Absolutely. So, what would you say is the main message or takeaway from your story, your personal story?
Well, I think it's love is in everything.
Hmm.
I've been thinking a lot recently about how creativity is so aligned with flow, is so aligned with the life force, is so aligned with abundance. If you believe in that, we have chi in Eastern philosophies, or Kundalini energy. But really, for me, that word comes down to the experience of love, both inward and outward. Sensations of love flows through everything that I do. And I know that when I align with that, it really comes out okay.
Absolutely. So, a message of love, of course, is for everyone, absolutely everyone. But who do you think really needs to hear your story? You said
Mhm.
something about people who maybe aren't taking the risks that they need to take in their lives. What do you think might be holding those people back?
I work with something in my coaching business that I call the money monsters, which
Mhm.
are the voices that we've internalized both from our family of origin and our culture, that tell us that we can't have what we want. And so it keeps people very safe. You think of Piglet and Winnie the Pooh, it's like, what could be out there, the heffalumps and woozles. But really, like a monster under your bed, if you turn on the light, often there's nothing there. And through that work, I've really realized that it's fear. People are afraid of what could be, of what might be. But when you take the steps to move forward and you pursue those things, not only do those things not happen, but sometimes really amazing, cool things happen, like your movie debuts in Reykjavik that you never knew you were going to make a month ago. And so for those people, I really would love to offer the inspiration of bravery. I
Mm.
am perhaps more brave than I feel, because people always hear my stories and they say, I can't believe you thought to do that, or I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, well, it kind of sounded fun. And for me, that's a full sentence.
Absolutely. Follow your fun. That is such great advice. Follow your joy, follow your fun, find what feeds you, and be that example for the world that yes, you can follow your joy and you can follow your fun and still create wonderful, amazing things in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And be rewarded for it, right? We have this myth that we have to leave joy and play and laughter in childhood. But I have found as an adult that the more I embrace those things, the more I'm rewarded emotionally, financially, and physically. People are looking to fill up with what makes them happy. So if you're offering what makes you happy, it's going to probably work out for both of you.
Absolutely. All right. So I want to ask you, how did this journey? So we'll go back to 2020 for a moment. How did this journey change you?
Mm. I definitely can't go back to the way I was before. That is one of the things that I'm actually extremely appreciative of the past year for, is that it showed me how my life was amazing and served me so well and was so beautiful. And yet, because I had to stop and I had to listen and I had to be really still, I'm a very social person. I like a very busy schedule. I want to go out and do all the things with all the people and hear about it from everybody. And I didn't leave my house for months at a time, right? Wasn't seeing anyone that wasn't already in my house. And in that stillness, I realized that there were parts of me I kept too busy to remember to feed.
Mm,
And luckily for me, that was a reconnecting to creativity as a life force, not as something I make money at or something that I do to get attention or approval or to connect with my social group. It is something that is intrinsic to who I am and the way that I do everything that I do. And from tapping into that, I realized that I can't go back to a place where I starve myself of expression. I think I felt that if I could segment my life enough, I could check all the boxes rather than having it be a dance that I do in all things, in all aspects of my life.
that is resonating with me so much. Sorry, I'm tearing up a little bit. I'm gonna take a drink here.
Yeah, of course.
You've just really described my experience so much in 2020, and I agree. I can't ever go back. I mean, not that I would really want to, but there have been some tough times recently, especially. Um, you know, Pressures to do things differently. And I've had to really strongly just say, no, like I remember what it was like to deny this part of myself and to prioritize other things than creation. And I'm just
Mhm.
not doing it anymore.
And and you are rewarded for that, right?
Mhm,
That's the other
mhm.
thing, is it's like not only is this a deal breaker for me, I will never go back, but I see there is fruit growing in that orchard as well.
Absolutely. And it may not be coming as quickly as you want or in the way that you are looking for it to come.
Yes, patience is a virtue, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. And also open-mindedness, looking for the opportunities in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect them.
And I think that's so important too, because as creatives, we're so good at imagining that we lock into one image of what it's going to look like. And
Yes.
it's really served me to open my vision to allow something else to flow through. Okay, it's not a play, it's a movie. I want to go to Iceland. Okay, well, it's going to be in a couple of years. Iceland is not going anywhere.
Right.
But it will be there when the time is right, and maybe the circumstances will be even better.
Yeah. That is one thing I think I've just learned to trust the
Mm.
timing of the universe so much. My husband and I had this, brilliant business idea a couple of years ago, and we were like, this is going to be amazing. And we got into debt trying to build this business. And then it fell apart, and it was a sort of Airbnb related business. And now we look at it and go, oh my God, I'm so glad that's not what we're doing right now. Can you
Absolutely.
imagine how screwed we would be now?
Hmm.
Now, it felt like the end of the world at the time. Like you said, that bottom dropped out, and it was like, oh my God, I put all of my eggs into this basket. Well, important lesson for the future too. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yes, that is an important lesson for the future. Yes.
Absolutely. But at the same time, looking back, I go, oh, thank you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, Bobby, which is our word for, God, source, whatever you want to call it. Thank you, Bobby, for looking out for us.
It's
We
so
didn't see
true.
that coming, but you did.
That's right.
Yeah, so I've just really learned to believe that as you're saying, Iceland's not going anywhere. I tell myself that about Sweden all the time. So we have, lots of plans about Sweden and France, and I keep telling myself like they're not going anywhere. They're still going to be there. It's going to happen when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah, that's right. I have actually, it's funny you should bring up France. I was performing in Paris several years ago, and we had a coda that we had put on that trip, on that project. We were
Mhm.
going to go through Spain and then head over to Morocco. And I just decided at the last minute, the timing wasn't right. I couldn't do it. And I, between you and me and your listeners, I've regretted it ever since. I feel like I backed away from something that I really wanted in a moment of fear. And so I am planning when I can go and do a similar trip, but I know it will be more fulfilling for me because there was something energetically in me and in the universe that was like, not time yet.
Not yet.
Good idea, not time yet.
Mhm. And you gotta listen to that.
Mhm.
You have to listen to your gut, like, you gotta trust your instincts on those things.
It's
Absolutely.
absolutely true. And I also have found that the biggest heartbreaks of my life, it was only with time I understand they were the biggest gifts.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's because I've spun it into gold, like I did with my movie. But sometimes it's because there were things coming, like your story, that I couldn't have planned for. I couldn't have known. But because there was this unknown thing that was going to happen, it was the very best thing. The thing I'd set my heart on didn't work out.
Yeah. And of course, I didn't even have to answer my usual follow-up question there, which is what was the greatest gift of 2020 because you just gave it to us. But I want to go back a little bit. So this is usually about the time when I transition into an exercise that I like to do. And you were talking about kind of keeping an open mind of your sort of ideal, vision. And so what I'd like to do is just have you close your eyes for a moment. Okay. And I'm going to wave my little magic wand over here, and everything that you deeply desire has just come to pass. Here in present time, right now, everything you wish is true. And so I want you to, in your mind, sort of open your eyes. You don't have to actually open them because I find it easier to keep your eyes closed for this part so you can keep visioning. But open your eyes and look around this perfect, beautiful life that now exists. It's like you're waking up in this ideal world and just tell me what you see.
Mm. I definitely see what I call my poet cottage, which is the garden. I wouldn't say small building, but older style 1920s, 1930s cottage looking home that I own. It has a music room and a library and a room for me to write, a beautiful kitchen filled with light, a gorgeous garden outside. And I have all day to open all the windows and play my music and create stories in that space. And then soon I will be traveling to work on the film set for my movie while I'm meeting with my collaborators to work on our next written project. But when I open my eyes, I am grounded in that safety and beauty of home, knowing that my web of connection extends outwards.
Beautiful. So I want you to imagine you go into that kitchen that's just full of light,
Mhm.
and there's food just sitting out there for you.
Mhm.
Food has just been provided to you. And I want you to just take a moment and tell me what you smell, what you see. Just describe this for me.
Well, it definitely smells like fresh baked baguette.
Mm.
And I see a really beautiful creamy wedge of brie cheese
Oh,
and strawberries.
oui, madame.
Yes. And the whole kitchen smells like lavender because there's lavender on the windowsill.
Mm.
And there's a little pup at my feet barking.
What does he look like?
It's a spaniel, a King
Okay.
Charles mix.
Mhm.
Yes. So auburn, curly fur and fuzzy toes and a little black nose.
So cute. All right. So, like you said, you kind of go through your day and you go out and you collaborate, you're having all this wonderful stuff happen. And then something just unexpectedly wonderful happens today. Just pure grace from heaven, nothing you particularly deserved or were working hard toward. It's just fell into your lap. How are you going to celebrate?
Hmm. I think I would celebrate by sitting in my garden and watching nature, watching the butterflies, listening to the birds, seeing the flowers bob in the wind. I might enjoy a glass of something, tea or champagne or something.
Mhm.
And whoever was around, of course, would be there, but we would just be still and quiet and a little bit sun-baked, that kind of like lazy easiness of when you're just a little bit sun-baked.
Absolutely. And so now I want you to think about, what in this world is really bringing you great meaning and giving you deep satisfaction. And I want you to imagine that you're interacting with someone who's really been profoundly affected by your work. And they're just telling you how much this has changed their life, how much you have really helped them. Maybe it's a coaching client, maybe it's someone who has seen your work, but I just want you to see on their face how sincere they are and how moved they are and how grateful they are to you and the gifts that you brought to them. And what does that feel like?
Hmm. It feels like connection. And it feels like there's a thread from my heart to their heart
Mm,
that allows a communication on a deeper level than I think I realized, and also they realized they have a surprise that I have also when they're talking to me. I think we recognize each other.
beautiful. So I want you to come back inside into kind of your happy place, whatever it is inside your house that's like, this is my really comfy spot. And there's some music playing. And what kind of music is it?
Oh, it's classical music,
Mm,
soft and beautiful.
lovely. And so you've had this beautiful, perfect day. Everything's starting to kind of wind down. You're probably going to be heading to bed soon. What's the last thing you want to do?
I think I really believe in rituals, so I think that it would be an evening ritual,
Mm,
checking in with the moon, maybe lighting a candle and setting an intention, just really centering into my heart space and thanking the day and the universe and all the good gifts and visualizing the good things that will come the next day.
And so, what is that intention that you're going to set?
I think the intention is to have a very similar day to the one I had that day. It's
Beautiful.
I need no
Beautiful.
more than that, I think.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, let's open up your eyes. All right. How did that feel?
Yeah, it felt so lovely. It's like restful, you know, to go to such a beautiful place and enjoy the day so purely.
Absolutely. So, I know that one of the things that you do is that you help people to have a clear vision for their own future
Mhm.
and, be able to kind of look back from that place and say, well, how did I get here? How did I get from where I am now to that place that I just imagined? What commitments do I need to make to myself? What habits do I need to, create? And I imagine you're already well versed in this and that you probably have those commitments in place and you probably have those habits already in place. But is there anything else that you can think of that you might need to shift slightly, just a micro shift toward that vision that you just had?
Yes, I think that there is. And you're right. I have a million plans and a million projects and a million collaborators. So that is true. But one of the things that has come up for me, I would say in the last 3 or 4 months, and I felt the shift in my vision is a sense that everything is of its own nature. There was nothing more that I needed to do except for to be myself and take the action in front of me. There was a trust in the unfolding that I do have very much, but it was so locked in to that person that I think that I could really work on shifting into feeling that trust on deeper and more rooted levels.
Yes. So faith, trust, just flow.
Definitely flow. I really struggle with the idea of surrender. It was brought to me, from my yoga gurus and teachers. And it's always a word that to me felt passive and even inactive in a way that, big old fire energy over here, I didn't like that. I feel powerless when I'm not taking action on the things that matter to me. And I've since realized that it's about being in flow. It's not about not doing. It's like how when you're swimming, sometimes you just ride the current for a while because there are forces that are doing things on your behalf that you can align with, but then also you can use the energy of your own being and propel yourself in certain directions.
What I've always felt is like life is actually sort of a, a river. It's like, okay, it's flowing in this direction, right? And you can float, in that direction. Or you can spend a bunch of energy paddling and paddling and paddling. And either you're trying to go upstream, which isn't going
Unless you're a
to, you're
salmon.
right? Like you're just going to exhaust yourself, right? Or you're just going back and forth. You're going back and forth. And you're just kind of filling that space and filling that air rather than just flowing with the current.
Mhm.
I have found this more and more to be true that the harder I fight against something, like the more powerful it becomes. What
Mm.
we resist persists.
Yeah, I think that is true. Especially I have found when it's a belief in our inside ourselves. Like
Mhm.
when we're resisting something that we believe, even though we don't want to, it just turns into like a gorgon at the gates. It gets massive.
It really does. Yeah. And so I find the more we can just focus on flowing toward where we want to be. And like you
Mhm.
said, just being open to the timing of that, being open to what that's going to look like.
Mhm.
And but just, keep it directionally correct. Keep making
Mhm.
those micro shifts to stay
Absolutely.
directionally correct.
I had a history teacher once tell me, I've found it fascinating that the Vikings didn't have like a real navigational system. Like they didn't have a map or any of those things, but it was a very alpha society. So they had a really great party time. Yay, let's go out, conquer the world. And then they just load up on their boats and take off into the night. And they didn't know where they were going. They didn't know how they were going to get home. They were just like out for the adventure, and they probably use some star navigation. I don't know. I haven't researched that part, but the bravery of just like, where is the ocean going to take me? What's next? What's out there? I think that's an energy that really serves.
Well, you said fire energy, right?
Hashtag Leo.
Sagittarius.
There you go.
My
Yes,
daughter's a
adventure
Leo, so
fire.
got a lot of Leo up in here.
Mhm.
Got a
Yep.
lot of fire going on. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we fire signs especially, we're just adventurers at heart.
We are, because we're just like, what's new and exciting? Feed me, nurture me. And it can be very quick start. Like obviously Aries is the most quick start, but I have noticed that as soon as I figured something out, I'm ready for the next thing. Like the idea of boredom is my biggest nightmare.
Yeah.
And I just think about that fire. You got to keep feeding that fire, man. And you got to keep it not a forest fire. You have to have some containers for your fire, so you can actually serve and warm people, not burn them up. But it's also about stoking the fire and keeping the inspiration going and keeping the challenges at a level that feel enjoyable. And I really love being a fire sign, and I love other fire signs too, because we're always like, yeah, 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 yeah. It's like sparking off each other.
Yeah, and innovation, there's just that innovative energy, like you said, and I think like you said, as soon as we understand something or we kind of get the hang of it, we're like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
I got that.
And,
What's next?
and alchemy too. The other thing because that is so true what you just said. And also that we transform things into magic. And that's something that I thought everyone could do, but I have learned in recent years is a special skill for fire signs, is that we take ordinary and turn it into supernatural, to extraordinary, right? Like we shoot a movie in a closet that has an international debut. What? Earth signs don't think of that. Love you, earth signs.
Yeah, and we need those earth signs. We need those earth signs to keep us grounded and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Because
but
they'll keep us on budget and on time.
exactly. But that's the thing, everyone has their gift. And as soon as you sit there and start mooning over somebody else's gift and envying their gift and discounting your own gifts, that is such a profoundly ungracious, ungrateful attitude toward your own gifts.
Mhm. And it's one of the reasons I've actually gotten interested in astrology and horoscopes. I had my stint as a teenager and I've come back into it in the recent years because there's space for all of us under the sky. And all of us have our purpose. And I joked about earth signs, but I actually have a lot of earth in my chart, which is why I'm able to take those visionary projects start to finish. And I'm so grateful for that. I have very little air, so I always have a lot of air people around me because they're going to communicate for me. I'm articulate, but I get in, I get out. Like I'm not chatty, 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 chatty. And so I feel like it is so amazing to tap into your unique strength because it is needed and then allow other people to shine because that's why there's the collective, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, and I'd love to just talk a little bit now about what you're working on and how the audience can find you.
Yes, thank you so much. So, as a creative, I am finishing my first screenplay. My creative collaborator and I met in an acting class in May, and we just hit it off and started to write a web series together. And you can check that out on Instagram. It's called In the Zoom Room, and it's a comedy of two very misbehaving ladies. We absolutely have a blast making it. And based on the success and the response of that, we're actually working on our first screenplay, which we hope to finish in the next month. So my creative juices are flowing in new, exciting ways that I can't wait to see what happens next. In my coaching business, you can follow me on my website, Self Trust Fund. And that's because I really found as creatives, we needed to build up the self trust to know that the funds were coming, to build that creative trust fund for ourselves. And I'll be offering a series of workshops every month. They're bringing back 2020, so they're only $20 to attend, and so you can register for that on my website, selftrustfund.com.
Obviously, I'm a fan of wordplay and clever titles, so I see what you did there. Bravo.
Like attracts like, my darling.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Law of attraction is true. Here we are. We are proof. Just beautiful synchronicity here. I'm so glad that the universe brought me to you. And I really look forward to collaborating with you in lots of ways in the future. So thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we wrap up?
No, it was an absolute pleasure to chat with you about what the gifts of last year were and how we're all going to bring them into the future. I can't wait to see what you and I do next.
Absolutely.